American flags seen at half-staff at the White House after President Trump ordered them to be lowered in honor of Charlie Kirk. Governors from across the country are paying tribute to him as well.
Charlie believed in the power of free speech and debate to shape ideas and to persuade people. Our hearts are broken. We mourn with his wife, his children, his family, his friends. We mourn as a nation.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis referring to Kirk as a warrior for liberty. Texas Governor Greg Abbott called his voice a beacon for young Americans. Democrats, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear and California Governor Gavin Newsom also condemning political violence.
And from President Trump to former President Obama, both sides of the aisle calling for an end to political violence after the killing of Charlie Kirk. Millions across the country, including our next guest, mourning Kirk's death, reflecting on what it was like to see him in action. And there's a picture of our next guest with Charlie Kirk, American Principles Project President Terry Schill. Terry, how will you remember Charlie Kirk this morning?
Well, thanks so much, Todd. Charlie was a great man. I remember we met him. I met him at the Claremont Fellowship, the Lincoln Fellowship at the Claremont Institute, and I went in skeptical. There was a bunch of hype about this kid, and this was 4 years ago, and I went in skeptical, and by the end of it, I approached him and I told him, I said I wanted to be the first volunteer on your presidential campaign. And he's very humble, he shrugged it off, but he was a friend. He helped people. He didn't ask for anything in return. That picture you showed at the beginning, that's him meeting my daughter, Reagan, who listened to him. I mean, you look at my daughter's YouTube feed, it was all Charlie Kirk videos. But he was larger than life. He was a good man. He didn't ask for anything. He just wanted to save our country. And he wanted to change hearts and minds.
Yeah. Here's a touching tribute from our own Greg Gutfeld on Charlie Kirk and his lasting impact.
Charlie was such a force of nature. He was brilliant and he was funny, but what scared people was his persuasiveness. The only way to take him down, because he could persuade you so strongly, was to kill him. This is a turning point. You know, if you believe in Charlie, you got to believe in yourself, because he believed in you. You know, this isn't over. This is the beginning. And Charlie's power just got released in all of us. He's going to be bigger now than he ever was on this chaotic planet. He made us all bigger. So I think that if you're at home and you're feeling bad, don't just get through it. And remember that he would want you to get stronger and not back down.
Terry, will Charlie's killing inspire a new generation of conservatives to take up that mantle and continue Charlie Kirk's mission that he has been on for the better part of a decade?
Yeah, Todd, I think that's exactly right. Charlie Kirk's legacy does not die. It continues. My daughter, we had a very serious conversation as a family yesterday with all my kids, and my kids are going to live on. They're going to carry that torch. They aren't backing down. You know, Todd, I was thinking about this. I'm a political history guy. I work in politics. Charlie and I were kind of peers. He was much bigger than I am. I'm not trying to cloud that, but I've been trying to think about, in terms of American history, what type of similar political assassination was this? And with the stature and the crowds and the impact that this guy had on America, the closest thing I can come up with is Martin Luther King Jr., right? He had that much of an impact. And I think that there's going to be a whole new generation of American kids who see this and see what happens, see the price that he pays. And I think that they're going to be so inspired and motivated that they're going to be so fired up about America that they're willing to pay that price too.
Lara Trump said she doesn't know if Donald Trump would be president without Charlie Kirk. Do you agree with that?
100%. I think that Donald Trump is in the White House right now largely because of what Charlie Kirk did by motivating the youth. You look at the polls. We increased huge grounds amongst young voters. Young voters, young men specifically, are swinging towards the right. They're swinging towards Republicans. There's no question. Charlie Kirk had an impact on this last election, but I think his legacy is much bigger than just one election. I think it's going to save the rest of the country.
And saving the country is, I think, a great place to jump off for my next question, because I spent the better part of the last 12 hours wondering what happens in this moment. Do we come together as a nation, or do we divide further? And we've seen, Carly read some of the reactions from Democrat governors Andy Beshear, Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom's was so powerful, missing his friend Charlie Kirk, honoring his friend Charlie Kirk. And then you have Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Barack Obama issuing their statements saying political violence is not the answer. So, Terry, I ask you, will this moment inspire us to come together as a nation to say this political violence has gone too far, especially over the last 5, 6, 7 years? Or does this moment divide us somehow further than we are right now?
Well, I'm optimistic. I'm very much optimistic about the future of this country. Today's 9/11, right? And I don't think that these dates are meaningless. Charlie Kirk was assassinated the day before 9/11, which was a very consequential day for America. And I think that we have the opportunity right now to tone down the rhetoric, back off of all this garbage. I just hope that the politicians, the leaders, right? The leaders have outspoken weight here. It's immeasurable. We have to get the rhetoric under control. We have to stop calling each other these terrible names and inspiring this type of stuff. But I'm very optimistic, Todd, and I have to be optimistic with all the kids I have. They need a bright future in America, and we need to tone this stuff down before it gets too bad.
Vice President J.D. Vance writing on X, quote, Charlie Kirk was a true friend, the kind of guy you could say something to and know it would always stay with him. And now that Charlie Kirk is in heaven, I'll ask him to talk to the big man directly on behalf of his family, his friends, and the country he loves so dearly. You ran a good race, my friend. We've got it from here. And you mentioned that potentially you saw Charlie Kirk as a presidential candidate someday, and those words coming from somebody who most people view as the next presidential candidate on the Republican side, J.D. Vance. So my final question to you, is this somebody that you ultimately did think would be a president of the United States someday in Charlie Kirk?
1,000,000%. Charlie was going to be the president of the United States someday. He wasn't old enough. He was only 31. I was going to volunteer in his campaign in 4 years from now. But he was good. Todd, I just want to tell you that I lost my dad 4 years ago. He was 57. He died of cancer. And the prayer I had was, thank you, God, for Bobby. Thank you, God, for my dad. And God bless Charlie Kirk. God bless Erica. Thank you, God, for Charlie Kirk. He helped our country. He helped save in this last election. But thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God, for Charlie Kirk.
Beautifully said. We'll leave it there. Terry Schilling, thank you, sir.